Hello, welcome to a new session on JavaScript offered by Sifting Bytes Academy. My name is Venu, and in today's session we will quickly learn how to set up our development machine, that is our laptop or desktop that we are going to use to write and develop web applications. Now there are several ways to do this. Since our main focus is to learn JavaScript, we can start off with a simple setup and slowly work our way up to set up a full-fledged productive development machine, using which we can develop any web application that we can think of. We will explore the various user interface components of a typical web browser. We will also learn few basic JavaScript statements and their syntax. So let's get started. Well, the first thing, and actually the only thing that we need, is a web browser installed on our machine. Most of the modern operating systems already come bundled with some sort of a web browser. For example, Windows line of operating systems used to come up with Internet Explorer as the default web browser. In the later versions, say in Windows 10, it came up with Microsoft Edge as well, along with Internet Explorer. Microsoft Edge has now replaced Internet Explorer as the default web browser in Windows 11. In Apple's macOS, we get Safari as the default web browser. And most of the Linux-based operating systems or distributions come with Mozilla's Firefox. Now all these browsers are amazing. They're all very sophisticated and stuffed with modern features to run any kind of web application. But in this course, we will be using Chrome, a browser developed and provided by Google. A quick look at the browser market share worldwide across all devices shows that the most used browser is Google Chrome, with a lion's share, about 63% global market share on all devices, followed by Safari with 20%. So clearly, majority of the computer users are using Chrome to browse through websites. So, as developers of those websites or web applications, it's also our first preference to test and run the web applications we will be developing. Now there are few things from Google that might confuse us. So let's get them straight. A web browser is not the same thing as a search engine. A search engine like Google Search is a website with a URL www.google.com that provides links to other websites. Google Chrome is a web browser developed and provided by Google company, using which we can access web applications like Google Search. Google has also developed Chrome OS, a proprietary Linux-based operating system which uses the Google Chrome web browser as its principal user interface. So, Chrome OS is an operating system which uses the Google Chrome web browser as its primary user interface, through which one can browse web applications like Google Search, which in turn provides links to other websites. So, in most machines, except in Chrome OS based devices, we will have to install Chrome as an additional step, as it doesn't come out of the box. For that, just run whatever default browser your system has and search for Chrome. Mine is a Windows operating system, so I'm using Microsoft Edge. Click on the first search result. We will see that our operating system is automatically detected and an appropriate download link is provided to us. Click on the Download Chrome button and a setup file gets downloaded. Find it and run it, which launches an installation wizard. Click on Yes, and that should download and install the latest stable version of Chrome in our system. When we open the Chrome browser for the first time after installation, it generally asks if we want to configure it as our default browser. It's an optional step, but I'll go ahead and set it up as my default browser. Now we are all set. there are a few key terms that we should be aware of before we proceed further. Let's quickly fire up our Chrome browser and open up a simple yet very resourceful website, linfo.org. This thing which opens up when we run our browser is the browser window, or in short, window. A window is the feature of a web browser that allows end users to view websites or applications on the internet. A browser window can be viewed in a full screen or can be scaled down and repositioned on a device screen. So, while our device screen size is fixed, the browser window's size can vary. We can shrink a window down to the minimum width and it will automatically show the mobile version of a website if it is responsive by design. Clicking up any website's link will open the content in either the current window, a new window, or in a new tab in the window. Tabs are a feature in most modern browsers that helps reduce cluttering when we open up multiple websites or web pages. Instead of having multiple windows open, we can open multiple tabs, each showing a different page of the same website, or we can open up multiple websites in multiple tabs. If we check out the layout of the browser window, there is a title bar at the top that displays the title or name of the web page. And below the title bar, there is a toolbar which provides us back and forward buttons to navigate back and forth between pages we have viewed previously. There is also a refresh button, typically designated by an arrow in a circular shape, that can be clicked to reload the current web page. Next to the toolbar, we can see an address bar where we generally type in the URL of the website that we want to check out. In most modern browsers, we can also type in our search queries or keywords in the address bar to get the search results. At the bottom of the browser window, there is a status bar. It's hidden, but it pops up when a web page is loading and it displays the current state of the web page being displayed. It also shows whether the page is secure, its certificate, what loaded, and the web address in general. There are also scroll bars, horizontal scroll bars and vertical scroll bars to scroll through the web page of a website. Now, the most important part, the central part of the browser window where the actual content of the web page is displayed, is called viewport. The viewport is the user's visible area of the web page. This is where the end user generally focuses on when checking out a website. Hence, as web developers, this is important to keep in mind when designing responsive web applications, which look good on any device of any form factor, be it a desktop or a mobile phone. Also remember that the layout of browser window can vary depending on the operating system being used. For example, a browser window on Microsoft Windows shows the close, minimize and maximize buttons in the top right corner, whereas browsers on macOS show these buttons in the top left. We can check out the version of our Chrome browser by clicking on the three dots button on the top right, click on Help and on About Google Chrome. Now this is mine when making this video, but yours could vary. It really helps to have a rough idea on the version of our browser. It will come in handy when something is not working in our browser. And as the first step in troubleshooting, we will have to verify if a specific feature is supported in the version of our browser. For example, there is a popular JavaScript feature called arrow functions. We can check out this very useful website, caniuse.com. If we type in arrow functions and check for it, we can see support information of various browsers. Clearly, Chrome did not support it until version 45. That is, if our JavaScript code had arrow function syntax in it, it wouldn't work on older versions of Chrome, 4 to 44, but will work from version 45 and newer. Notice that Internet Explorer does not support it at all. So is the case with many other new features. Hence, Developers generally avoid Internet Explorer as it doesn't support many latest JavaScript features. This website comes in very handy, not just to check JavaScript features, but also modern HTML and CSS features. Hence, it's worth bookmarking. Now moving on, there is another very interesting feature in most modern browsers called developer tools, or in short, dev tools. In Chrome, we can right click anywhere on the web page and choose inspect from the drop down list. Or for faster access, we also have a keyboard shortcut Ctrl+Shift+C or just F12 on Windows, Linux or Chrome OS based operating systems. This opens up a DevTools user interface, which the name kind of implies is very useful for web developers. It might be overwhelming for people who are seeing this for the first time, but it kind of grows on you once we start using it. We will explore it inside out in this course. For this video, let's focus on this particular tab or pane called console in the DevTools. It's called a developer console, or in short, dev console. This is all we need to write JavaScript code. If we just want to write and practice JavaScript code snippets, we can do it right here. Think of it like a scratch pad where we can practice writing JavaScript code. We can also execute what we wrote to check out the output without actually affecting the website that's open in the browser window's viewport. Now, let's take a moment to learn some basic JavaScript statements and their syntax to get started with. In computer programming, a statement basically means an instruction to the computer. A group of related statements that are written to accomplish a specific task or a job is a program, a computer program. A JavaScript statement is a computer instruction written by following a specific JavaScript syntax. A group of such related statements make up a JavaScript program. When a JavaScript program is executed, by default, the JavaScript engine in the browser runs these statements one at a time, one by one, and in the same order as it is written. This is called synchronous programming. The simplest and the most common task that we can think of is to print or to display some message onto the screen. Say we want to display a message, "Hello World." For that, in JavaScript, we can just write console.log within the parenthesis the message "Hello World" enclosed in the double quotes. This is a simple statement written in JavaScript instructing the computer to display or print the message we wrote within the double quotes onto the developer console. The message as such can really be anything, but it needs to be enclosed within the quotes. Because the JavaScript engine, which is built into the web browser, when it looks at these matching quotes, interprets the text in between these quotes as a value. And console.log is an instruction to JavaScript engine to print that value onto the console of the browser. In this session, we will learn few simple JavaScript statements and their usage like this, which you just got to remember and use them as instructed for now. We will just focus on learning their usage, their syntax, and what they do just for getting started. And later along in the course, when we are equipped with the necessary knowledge, we will dissect and understand the anatomy of each of these statements. Now, to run the single line of code, on the browser's console, type in the code and just press enter. This is an interactive mode where we get the output instantly. Generally, in this mode, we type in a single JavaScript instruction or a statement and hit enter to submit it to the JavaScript engine, which in turn interprets it and executes it, and we get the output immediately. The second mode in which we can run JavaScript is the file mode, about which we will discuss in the next session. In file mode, we just write a bunch of JavaScript statements in a file and run them together. JavaScript engine will run them one statement at a time in order from top to bottom. And this is how we run JavaScript in real-world projects. We will get to this mode in the next session. By the way, we can just ignore this annoying undefined value that shows up after typing in some code. It is the return value for the execution of the previous line of code. We will learn about return values when we learn about functions later in the course. So don't worry about it for now. Let's move on to the next interesting thing. We can also store values in memory and give them an easy to remember names. These are called identifiers or variable names. Say we have a long welcome aboard message like this. We can store it in memory and give it a name as greet. For that, we can use a keyword var provided by JavaScript. And the syntax for that is starts with var keyword followed by a white space which is mandatory, and then the identifier name of our choice. Let's just say greet, just an easy to remember name, and equal sign followed by the long message enclosed within quotes, finally ending with a semicolon which indicates the end of the statement. If we run this statement in the console, this long text message is stored in memory, computer memory, that is RAM. Now oversimplified to understand, and just for the purpose of visualization, we can think of computer memory as a collection of blocks. And the long message that we want to store is stored in some of these blocks of memory. Say it's stored in these particular blocks in memory, and the identifier greet represents this value as a whole in memory. This is the value, and this is the identifier or variable name of this value, which now we can use anywhere we want. That is, we can use this identifier or variable name wherever we want to access this long text value. So, if we want to display this value onto the console, instead of this statement where we are typing in the whole text again, we can just replace the value with the variable name. Notice that there are no quotes. It's very important to remember that. Values need to be enclosed in quotes, but variable names shouldn't. That's the syntax in JavaScript. That's how it works. And that's how it is understood by the JavaScript engine. Let's see this in action. Flipping to our browser window, I'll first refresh this web page. And now I can open up a brand new session of my dev console by using a keyboard shortcut Ctrl+Shift+J. There are tons of shortcut keys which come in very handy when working with browser dev tools. We will be using them throughout the course. But for the curious few who want a quick sneak peek, I will leave a link in the description below. Now here in the console, we can copy and paste the two statements of our program that we have just seen and press enter to execute them to see the output. We can do that. We can run multiple lines of code all at once in a single shot in the console as well, like we do in the file mode. Alternatively, we can also manually type in all the instructions. Let's also do that. We can use a keyboard shortcut Ctrl+L or this clear console icon at the top left of the DevTools UI to clean up the stuff from the console. A very handy feature provided by the console is the history feature. To step back through the history, we can use up arrow for previously executed commands in an active session. I'll clean it up again. And after typing in the first instruction, if we press enter to type in the next instruction, we see that the JavaScript engine is executing the first instruction and returning the cursor back for us to type in the next instruction. This is perfectly fine. But if we want to type in all the statements first and then execute them together, that is, to type multiple lines of code, press Shift and Enter at the end of each line to insert a soft return, and only press Enter when you're finished typing to run the full block of code. This is the best and fastest way to start running ad hoc bits of JavaScript code snippets using this browser's developer console provided as part of browser's developer tools. In addition to using this developer console to run pieces of code like this. It is also used by developers to log what is going on in their JavaScript code and do any debugging in finding the problem when an application is not displaying the desired behavior. And just for the heads up, later in the course, we will dive deeper into the architecture of JavaScript execution environment and learn about various components like JavaScript engine, its stack and heap memory components, and lot more in both the browser and also in the node server. That is when we will phase out these oversimplifications and approximations and understand the actual dynamics. We will also learn about a keyword called let, which is a better replacement for the where keyword that we have been using up until now. We will learn about scopes and lot more coming up in next sessions. Before we wind up, another great feature of any modern web browser is its extensibility. That is, in addition to the basic to advanced features it provides built in by default, we can also extend the features and functionalities of our browser by way of installing plugins. There are very helpful plugins that are available. We can check them out by clicking on the three dots on the top right and going to More Tools and then Extensions. These are all the extensions I have installed for my browser. Developers can switch on this developer mode to get some extra technical information. We can also check out for more in the Chrome Web Store by typing in here in the search bar. We can search for any functionality that can be useful, not just for the developers, but also for normal end users of web browsers who are just interested in browsing websites. For example, people who are visually impaired, partially or fully, can set up a screen reader extension. Screen reader is a software which basically reads out the text and content of a web page. Just look for a free screen reader and you can choose one. Setting it up and its integration with the browser is very quick and smooth.
Chromevox spoken feedback is ready.
This is how I added screen reader extension to my browser. We will also explore many such useful extensions in the course which help us in web development. Well, that's all for this session and see you in the next one. Your feedback will be enormously helpful in improvising the final shape of this course. So please subscribe to the Sifting Bytes channel and contribute any questions, comments or suggestions in the comment section below. Thank you.